Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to tear apart the Solex Kadrons and clean them. I'm at my dad's place in his garage. We've got a ultrasonic cleaner here with solution. It's set up to where are we, right about 80 C or 65 C temperature wise. We're going to blow these carbs apart and dip each one in there just to kind of clear out any of the gunk that would have been inside of it. And so take these carbs apart. It's actually pretty simple. We've got the Kadron manual, which we're going to be using more of to put them back together. Taking apart is probably only about 6 screws on top and then a few odds and ends. Nothing super crazy there. Tools wise, flathead screwdriver, 14mm wrench, 13mm wrench, and a 7/16 to get the fuel line barbs off. So let's get cracking. All right, so let's start taking it apart. First thing we're gonna do here is pull the top plate off. Pretty simple, it's just gonna be six screws there. Put it this way so you guys can see it. So the book that I was referencing, the complete Kadron manual, it's available on Amazon. I'll post a link to that down in the description below, but it's really good. It goes through everything, blowing these apart, tuning them, troubleshooting, setting them up for racing, setting them up for daily driving. It's a really good resource that I've used each time I've had to deal with these, and I got it pretty quickly after I purchased these and carburetors. I've actually got 2 of them because I lost one, and one of the times I was moving the car and all my parts around, it disappeared on me. So that's actually my second copy, but it's a really good resource here. And these carbs worked really well when I got them. The first thing I did after I put a new gasket kit in them was get a piece of glass and some sticky sandpaper, about 180 grit for the first pass, then 240, and you stick the sandpaper onto your piece of glass or a piece of granite that's got a nice smooth surface on it, and you can use that to deck the surface. As you can see here, it's still kind of shiny, looks machined. They're pretty soft castings, and if you don't tighten the bolts down right, you'll end up getting warping. So all of the bolt holes were touching and nothing else really was. So I had to take a fair amount of material off to get everything to fit right. So there's that top hat. We'll set that aside for now with the 6 screws. We'll take that apart in a second. Here we've got the main body. So the main gasket here, which is still good, so we're not gonna need to replace those. Take that off. It only goes on one way. It's shaped a certain way. Then we've got the accelerator nozzle here. This will spray when the accelerator pump on this end pumps. This will spray extra fuel down into the throat beyond the jet. Brass floats. Last time I tested them, they were still good. I'll have to test them again. Not gonna need to clean them, but I will test them to make sure they float later on. We have down in here, we've got our one of our jets here, and you see there's a lot of just kind of junk down in the bottom. That's what we're going to be taking care of with the ultrasonic cleaning today. So I'll keep getting the rest of these. So I'll get the accelerator pump. Oh, that ball is important. You don't want to lose that. Goes with the accelerator pump. This we're going to clean. I'll get the pump body off of here. Make sure it all looks good as well. So what's nice about these carburetors and what makes them pretty popular is that they're Solex, which is the same brand as the stock carbs, but they're single barrel, which makes things a little easier to set up. You're not fighting over 4 barrels, you know, in total with doing the Webers. There we go. That was a little sticky. Got that up. Gasket's still in good shape there. We don't need to replace that. Spring is good, nice and tight. Surfaces here were all flattened as best we could. They look good there. And then we gotta pop this guy out of here. There we go. Just like that. Go ahead and see if I can, there we go. Get this off here. These are all gonna be completely reset, so I'm not worried about saving my exactly where everything was. We're gonna have a whole video on setting these up for the car and tuning them to the engine, because that's gonna be a whole process. So next, main body here, we're gonna get off its 2 nuts here off of the throttle plate. And these are the 13s. So we'll come off the studs for the intake. Right here. There's my intake. Nice piece of cast aluminum with a good gasket on it. That's a little tight, but it's in good shape as well. Put that off to the side. Intake's in really good shape. We just got to clean up some gasket material on the bottom. Those look pretty good. Now on the inside here, we've got 2 bolts holding the butterfly onto the main plate. We'll get those off here. Oh, need to get a smaller screwdriver. Be right back. All right, I got my smaller screwdriver, so I need to add that to the list. And it's just 2 screws in here. You have to pardon the fan noise if you can hear it in the background. It is 104 right now in Texas, and I'm out in the garage. It's a little warm. So there's 2 screws for the throttle plate. Put those up there. This goes with these things. I had this rebushed at the Caddy Shack, so I'm not really going to do much with it. It's clean. I may run it through just for a quick little bit to get all the passages cleaned out, but I don't have much else I need to do with this on either one of these. We have a phenolic plate, kind of a heat separator. I surfaced it a little bit when I did the rest of the surfacing. Another gasket. This one's matched to the other one. A little tighter fit though. Okay. And there's a Venturi in here. This is a changeable Venturi size, but I'm going to leave mine in. I don't need to change that out. It can stay where it is. And that's pretty much the main body with a couple of jets in it, some air bleed screws. But we'll leave all those in the main body. So we'll go ahead and put this in with some other parts here in just a second. All right, so we've got the main body down in the ultrasonic cleaner with some cleaning solution in there. I don't know if you can see much bubbling in there, but basically how the ultrasonic works, it creates cavitation. We can go ahead and cover this up. It creates air pocket cavitation. So that way it gets in and blows all the dirt off of any of the components. So things like on here, down in those corners, all that dirt should all get blown off, and we'll just scrub it a little bit with a toothbrush at the end, and these parts will come out all nice and clean. Okay, well that piece is running in the ultrasonic cleaner. We're gonna go ahead and take apart the top hat, which has the fuel inlet. The fuel filter is located here. And then this is the valve that gets shut off by the float. When the float comes up, pushes the pin down and closes the valve. Normally this sits like this with the pin down, and it's actuated just like that. So we'll blow the rest of this apart, keep all the parts where they need to be, and get it ready to go in the bath. Filter stayed pretty clean, thankfully. See, there's a little bit of varnish and such in there. That's what we're trying to get rid of. That kind of worn out gasoline buildup over the couple of years in storage that the car was not able to be worked on. So we're remedying all that today, and then we will store these properly for when we get ready to put the engine back together and start everything back up. So for now, I'll go ahead and clean the regular fuel attachment. I'm going to be switching to hard lines when I redo the rest of the fuel lines, but we'll get to that later. I'm going to put the accelerator in sprayer in there as well, and the fuel filter. So those nice small little parts all get cleaned. The ball bearing should fit in there, and it does. That way it stays with everything else. There is a way to get these off, but for this video, we're not going to worry about that right now. We'll just stick this part in like this. It'll cover up all of the main passages we want to clean up, and we should be all good. Let's see if we can. While we've got the space, we'll go ahead and clean all the screws. Luckily, they're all different as well. They're already pretty clean, but we may as well give them another shot in the bath. Not going to clean the float. I don't want anything to happen to it. I know it worked. I'm pretty sure it still works, so I'm going to leave it alone. And we're about to finish up on the main body. So we'll get that out and put the others in just a second. So we got the main carb body out. Got the rest of the pieces in the ultrasonic. They're going now. So I just gave this a quick dunk in water to rinse anything else off of it. And we'll scrub it and clean it out. Just water down. It is a lot cleaner. All the gunk that was down at the bottom there has all come out. I'm just going to give this a little scrubby with a toothbrush. Knock anything else loose off in here. Well as back here, clean that off some. So I am definitely still learning about these carbs and carburetors in general. So if you see something that I did wrong or that looks really dumb and you're just like, why would you do that? You need to change this. Please let me know down below. Shoot me a comment, and I will always willing to learn and admit if I did something wrong. But this is, as far as I'm aware, one of the better ways to clean these up without going to a full chemical acid dip in a bucket of carb cleaner and everything, because these were already fairly pretty clean. So that's all cleaned up there. We'll let this air dry for a little bit, and then we'll blow it out here in a second. While these other parts get going. Okay, so we got everything back out. It's all been cleaned, run through, dipped in some clean water. Everything looks a lot cleaner. We got some of the varnish out off of this. This looks a lot better here. So we'll give some of these little parts, like in here, we'll give this a little scrub. Things that didn't flake off on their own, just coming right off now. So nothing super worrisome, but we got it all clean. It looks good, and I'm happy with it. So we'll let each of these parts just kind of clean off a little bit, and we'll spray any of the others with some compressed air here to get them all the way dry if they aren't quite dry here in a second. Let's check our little parts bin. Got our accelerator pump rod. It's all a lot cleaner now. All the gunk's cleaned out of it. Off to the side here with the other parts for it. Okay, the only thing I'm worried about finding is the little, there it is, little ball bearing. Put that to the side. This accelerator pump sprayer looks way better. Still a little mangled, but it was blowing air fine the first time we played with these. And it is still clear and should keep functioning. One of the main problems though when I was after it been stored is that this, I believe it was this side, did not want to spray anymore. The accelerator pump was clogged, so it's all cleaned out now. There's a lot of gunk in the fluid over there, and you can't quite see it, but it's pretty gross. Put that up there to the side, put this here. Fuel filter, even cleaner than when I got it. There's the fuel inlet. We can test that out, make sure it still works after we dry this a bit. All this has been dunked in fresh water and rinsed off very thoroughly, by the way, before I put my mouth on any of this. I made sure to do all that. It does work, and it seals up when you push the pin. Pin moves nicely on its own. That's good to know. Just the cap for the fuel filter, cleaned up nice. There's still a little bit of gunk in the threads. Let's scrub that out here. Nothing too crazy. It's all coming right out. Looks a lot better. The gasket for this is fiber, so I didn't want to run it through the ultrasonic cleaner, just to be safe. The gasket for the inside the carburetor for the fuel regulator is copper, so that one I had no problem running through. You actually also use these to set your float height, how quickly they turn off. You stack these shims here. So we'll put this back on here. We don't lose it. There's that. Those two pieces. The fuel barb looks good. These guys each get a lock washer. Lock washer. Lock washer here. And the fourth screw gets its little lock washer. There's all the screws for the accelerator pump, and the top plate screw. There we go, there's everything there. This all looks nice and clean. I don't see anything really offensive. There's not much going on up in this top plate. A couple little passages, but nothing really crazy. The vent tube is here. There is a modification for these to run a longer vent tube up, so when you're doing hard cornering, you're not sloshing fuel out the vent tube and then down into your engine, creating an overfueling issue. That may be something we look into later. We'll get the longer vent tube. It's not anything super complicated to get installed. It's just a press fit. But this is all clean, so we'll start putting everything back in. We'll drop in the fuel filter here. Goes in this way, not the other way around. Where's the cap for that? Here's the cap. That screws on. 14 millimeter. We're gonna snug this down tight. Again, this is brass and just cast pieces, so I don't want to get these too crazy tight. I don't want to strip anything. You know, don't want to mess anything up, because they will, you know, you can easily strip threads if you're not careful, or warp things as this originally was. So for now, we're going to leave this with the one shim. We'll get into, when we get ready to put these back on the car, we'll get into setting the heights and stuff on these. But just for rebuild purposes, so everything is back where it belongs. Clean, we'll put it back the way it came apart. That's the 14 as well. Give that a little snug, nice and tight. So that's the top hat. It's all done, just a couple of pieces, and we'll go ahead and toss. We'll throw the fuel barb in there. Still has some RTV on it, but we're going to use a new barb. We're going to get some hardline stuff for this. That's going to get changed down the line, and it's a pipe fitting, so it'll snug up, self-seal. Leave that like that. Put it to the side. Got our main body back. It's a lot cleaner. It looks really good. No major issues. So for this, we will drop the plastic dog bone down in, and then the bar. Oh, need that bar for the float hinge. Actually, real quick, before we do this, we'll make sure we have a good float. All right, so to test the float, obviously it should float. Got some clean water in here, and it does. We'll submerge it all the way. I don't see any bubbles. It pops right back up immediately. So that lets me know this float is still good and has not got any pinholes. It wasn't filled with any fluid or anything. Yep, so it's all good. So that test there, successful. So now we know the float is good. Put its little lever pin back in, drop it into its home. That's where it lives until it's full of gas. We'll drop the little check ball back where the accelerator pump nozzle goes. We know this is all good. So we'll drop this back in its home, right like so. It's gonna spray. We want it to spray right down there. We will check all this again once everything is together, and we've got everything set up for on the car. We'll make sure we're spraying in the correct location down the throat. We don't want it hitting the plate and bouncing off or anything. We want it to go straight past the plate into the intake. So let's, oh, there's the float came off again. Put that back on in a second. So we need our spring here for our injector pump. We've got the gasket top and the accelerator pump. Little lever in here, pushes on this guy, pumps the spring down in here. And that's how you get your pump action going. As you can see, doesn't need a ton of movement to create some pump going on there. Let's get these started, 2 of these started on here. Just to barely tight. That'll hold it in place. All the other holes are lined up nicely. These screws all cleaned up really nicely as well, being in there, giving that little bath. They were already really clean, but they look a lot better now. Here's the last one. Started by hand. Just running that on down. Whoop. So now we'll come around here in an X pattern, snug that one, come back to this one, snug it nice and tight, and snug this last one nice and tight. And there we go. Pump works. You can feel it. Pumping air. And I can also hear it blowing air out. I don't know if you can hear that or not. Try it out. We'll see how it goes. But we know the pump is clear again, and it'll at least blow air. So next thing here, let's get the float back in its home. This keeps falling out. Put the gasket on. Only goes on one way. You got to get clearance accelerator pump. All your other holes line up nicely. That's where our valve sits. Runs on here, closes it. So now this top hat will go on. Make sure you don't run into anything. Kind of puts the accelerator pump in its place. Everything's lined up nicely. Finger start all these screws just to hold everything in place. Okay. This last one in here. So now we're going to run these in a cross or star pattern. And there's 6 volts in a rectangle, so obviously we're going to need to go a little different. So right now I'm just going to make sure they're all just to finger snug. So we're going to start here at this lower one. Going to come right across directly in the center. It's a problem with flatheads. It's hard to keep the screwdriver where it goes. We're going to come across the throat bowl to this one. Make sure it's finger snug. It is. Cross again. Up here. Finger snug. Come down. We'll check this. Finger snug. And the last one, do the same. Finger snug. So now we'll come around and we'll tighten each one in the same sequence. So we'll come to the first one. We're going to give that a nice half turn. So we can do a little more. Get that nice and snug. Right here. Snug that up. Snug this one up. Each one is getting there's a little bit more to turn as we go, because the whole thing is getting pulled down nice and even. Snug that up. Then we'll come back around again. Make sure everything's nice and snug. We're just going to go all the way around the outside. Make sure everything is the way it's supposed to be. Man, I can tell we really did pull out a lot of varnish out of this carburetor, because this ultrasonic tank over here that we left open smells like like old gasoline. Close that back up. So there's the main carburetor body. It's all back together. So now we'll come down to the bottom here and we'll start putting our throttle body back on. So we'll get our first one. See this little ear here? Matches up with the ear here on the gasket, like so. So we'll drop that on. Make sure your 2 pinholes line up. Then we have a phenolic. This one can go on either way as long as your ears are at the top. Actually, it can't go on either way, now that I'm realizing that. It only goes on one way. It's like that. Same pinholes. Another matching gasket. And then the throttle plate will go on. Just like so. We've got our 2 little screws here. We'll drop in. My little screwdriver go. We'll run these down. And again, not tightening one all the way until we're pretty much got them both snug, and then tighten them both up. Snug all those gaskets up nice and tight. Seal everything up. Oh. And we've got a problem because now oh, I know what happened. I had you can see what happened here? I had the idle screw, the idle adjustment on the wrong side of the plate. I gotta take it off, put it back on. That's what happens. You're not paying attention. You mess some stuff up. All right, so we got the plate back off. As you can see, I messed the, there we go. Now that's on the right side. We'll run these screws back down. Here. That looks a lot better. So, if you guys are running Volkswagens of your own, let me know what carb setups you're running and why you're running those down in the comments below. And we'll see. I want to see what everybody else is running, because I hadn't really heard of these until I really got into this world. So last thing to put on here is the accelerator pump. Pretty simple. There's gonna feed it through. Feed the pin through there, snap into here. That way it runs with the throttle plate. And then we've got a washer and a spring that go on here. Easier to do. And then I have a, oh, that doesn't actually, to add some tension. I had a spacer in there, which we may or may not keep using after when we get everything set back up. And a spring tension adjuster. So there we go. That's not right. That's pulling the throttle open. And you see, this is what happens when you don't check the manual before you put stuff together. Put the spring on the wrong side. So I get to fix this again, because I make mistakes just like everybody else does. Pop that back out. Put the washer there, then the spring. There we go. That's the way it's supposed to be. Now feed this through. There, that looks right. Now it helps hold that closed. It just assists with your throttle return spring. Makes more sense to me now. Then we had this guy on here to give a little more tension to the throttle plate, but this will probably get changed out. I'm just going to put it back for now. That's how that runs. But that's probably, we're going to have to take that off eventually. Next time, once we get everything set up. So as you can see, this sit on a car, throttle linkage, come across, pull this as you step on the gas, open the butterfly on the inside. If you hit it hard enough, you'll spray some fuel out of the accelerator there and right down the throat. That's exactly where you want it to go. So the last thing to do is slip the last gasket on, put it back on the intake. We'll work on those later. But for now, that's the first Solex blown apart. Kind of walked you guys through it, put it back together, cleaned it up with the Ultrasonic. We'll jump into a time lapse and get the next one done. guys, we're back in my garage now, and we're over here by the list. As you know, whenever you get stuff done, you get to cross stuff off. So we removed the carbs a while ago. I forgot to cross that off. But this video, we also disassembled and we cleaned the carbs. So now we can cross that off the list. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget you can like, comment, and subscribe. Also follow us on Instagram at Foggy Designs. We'd really enjoy it. Stay tuned for the next video.